Hello everyone and welcome to day 2 of the Prehistoric Planet hype. And the hype is very real. In this video I will be discussing the second episode of Prehistoric Planet focused on the desert biome. And I'll be going into a little more depth than yesterday. A lot more depth than yesterday actually, based on popular demand. And because all my previous videos for Prehistoric Planet got copyright claimed for showing the clips that Apple TV Plus released on YouTube, which were fine to share before, but not anymore, I will be showing some screenshots instead as we discuss the episode, and we'll go through the entire thing this time around. Of course, I will be covering every episode, every day on the channel, so subscribe if you want to geek out with me. One of my Discord moderators said about yesterday's episode, "It was even better than expected, and I expected it to be great." And I think that's an excellent way to put it, and it applies even more to this second episode, because based off yesterday, I had high expectations, and still, this episode did not disappoint. Just like yesterday, the episode has a very strong start, this time with the Dreadnoughtus. A group of Dreadnoughtus males are traveling into the desert where hundreds of females have gathered, and it is where the males must fight for their right to breed. The kind of controversial air sacs on the neck are for display purposes to attract the ladies, and I found it absolutely hilarious how the males are walking in between the females being all, "Look at my sexy balls." Anyway, we see the battle between the current reigning bull and the new contender that had just come walking over. The scene plays out pretty much exactly as a dominance fight between elephant seals. The way they fight and the females lying all around them, even how it was shot and how it progressed narratively, gave me major flashbacks to similar scenes, like I said, of elephant seals fighting each other. I'm a big fan of nature documentaries, I watched a lot of those, and this was just very reminiscent of elephant seals fighting. For me, that is, at the moment, the single and teeny tiny negative of this series. Obviously, modern day animals are a logical source of inspiration to base the dinosaurs' behavior off of, so I feel kind of icky for even pointing this out, because what else are they supposed to do? But sometimes I feel it's a little too familiar to me, and it actually takes me out of it for a little bit. But enough about the negative. That is really the only negative that I have to get into for this episode, and so far it's really the only negative of the series so far. Anyway, the fight scene has a victor, of course. The new male defeats the old bull, and I absolutely adore the reaction shot of the females, where you can see the gasp expression on their faces. And then the winning male walks in between them all chuffed about himself, showing off his balls. It was really fun. I had a really good time with this scene, in spite of my earlier complaint. Let's not over-exaggerate that complaint, okay? It is a minor complaint. A little lizard segues us into an encounter with the Velociraptor and the Tarbosaurus. I love the introduction of the Velociraptor, where it almost feels like there's a little pause for shock and appreciation, as part of the audience will be like, "Finally, now that's a Velociraptor," and another part of the audience will go at that moment, "Wait, that's a Velociraptor?" I love that. Absolutely love it. Also, the line, "Time to be careful because Velociraptor often hunt together," has big, "and that's when the attack comes. Not from the front, but from the sides" vibe. Like that vibe, exactly. Maybe I'm just too big of a Jurassic Park fan, but I definitely saw like little nods in that particular introduction of the Velociraptor. Fans of the Tarbosaurus might be a little disappointed that they don't do much other than laze about like sated lions, but I found the scene overall very enjoyable, and I think it was more Velociraptor scene than the Tarbosaurus scene anyway. The next little story focuses on the Mononychus, and the majority of this is available on the Apple TV YouTube channel, showing the Mononychus hunting for termites. Just like the balls on the Dreadnoughtus, which will never not be funny. There is more speculative science in this episode, like stating that the Mononychus had a tongue twice as long as its head, stuff like that. I personally don't mind this sort of speculation at all, and I think it's necessary to make a fully fleshed out story. Then we have the dinosaurs at the oasis scene, which only downside is how short it actually is. It was amazing to see all these species come together at the watering hole. I also really enjoyed seeing the Mononychus walk among the other dinosaurs because it puts the size of all of them into perspective, showing how small the Mononychus is and how huge the others are. This is also the scene where the Tarbosaurus makes a brief return and it comes in and the herd of Barsboldia make way for him as he comes to drink. And honestly, that shot of the herd like splitting and the Tarbosaurus walking towards the water, it gave me goosebumps. And in that moment, I literally wrote it down as favorite scene right then and there. I was convinced that that would be my favorite scene. But there's actually a scene a little later on that I enjoyed even more, even though I think it's the most controversial scene of the series so far. The Barbaridactylus from the first episode, otherwise known as the Baby Murderers, return in this desert episode. Two of them fighting in the air was a great way to show off the surroundings and flex their cinematography skills as it looks gorgeous. I personally think that this episode was even more beautiful than the first one. And now comes my favorite scene, which was of male Barbaridactylus posing as females. As in, they have crests similar to the females as opposed to the big crest. And also in size, they are much smaller than the other males and actually match the females in size. The theory here is that these sneaky males, as they're called in the episode, are then able to mate with the females without having to fight other males for dominance, which can be lethal, as we saw already in this episode. We actually saw that twice, for the Barbaridactylus and for the Dreadnoughtus at the very start. Scientifically, I think this theory is very shaky. I mean, would the strategy of pretending to be female even work, like, as a basis? Like, wouldn't the females be singularly attracted to the big males with their big crests, as those are likely for display purposes and have evolved because females are attracted to them, leading to more and more and more extreme crests and stuff like that? You know, those physical traits evolve to attract the ladies. So I feel like scientifically this is definitely on shaky ground, even though they do sort of explain it by saying that the females will just breed with anyone to ensure that there will be offspring. But that's not how it works for modern birds, for example. And everything else in the show so far is very clearly and closely inspired by modern day animals, as I said. So this deviation was very out of place, but I thought it was really interesting. I'm not sure if there are modern day animals who display this tactic as well, just outright physically looking like a female for the purpose of being able to mate. If there are and you know about it, please tell me in the comments, because I would really love to know about it. But in spite of how controversial it is, or maybe because of how controversial it is, I really enjoyed this scene. As I said earlier, seeing clear parallels between the dinosaurs and modern day animal behavior has taken me out of the show a little bit a couple of times now. This was just completely unfamiliar to me, and for that reason, I really enjoyed it, and I was just curious to see what was going to happen, how it was going to play out, because it felt so new and fresh. Although I would see how it could upset people who were hoping for more hard science, but I don't think this is necessarily the right style of documentary for that, because like I said, they have to fill in the gaps a little bit with speculation, with inferences and stuff like that. Another reason why I loved this particular scene the most was because of the humor in it. One of the big males is actually fooled by the smaller male, the sneaky male, and it puts on his best show to impress what he thinks is a female, what he thinks is a particularly attractive female. And the sneaky male just looks up at this big male like, what a freaking idiot. And the small male, the sneaky males they call them, gets away with it by just pretending to be a really picky female who is not at all into him. And for me, it was a laugh out loud funny moment, and it was the last example of quite a bit of humor in this episode. Episode 1 gave us Rex Roomba, and then mostly it was just baby murder. This one, aside from a couple of brutal scenes, was a lot lighter. Overall, I think episode 2, Deserts, was visually more stunning than the first, but it was also less emotional. I didn't feel as attached to the single animals this time around, but I'm sure Prehistoric Planet has more traumatic moments coming our way. To close off, this is the list of animals that got named in the episode. Some of these, though, have very, very little screen time. Share in a comment what you thought of this second episode. I would love to hear your thoughts on it, and I hope that you'll join me tomorrow for episode 3. Thank you so much for watching, liking, subscribing, and until next time, enjoy Prehistoric Planet.